I've already asked you to think once, so I'm going to go way out on the edge of a limb here and ask you to think again. Imagine with me, if you will, swimming on a coral reef. Seeing the vivid colors, the fish darting around, seeing all the life, all of the interconnectedness on full, vivid, colorful display right in front of you. The smaller fish dart around, and they are the ones that have the hues of blues and yellows, and the sergeant majors with their stripes are easy to identify. The angel fish are also easy from their shape. And then at the edge of the reef, you see, cruising slowly by, always curious, rarely dangerous, barracuda, silver, shiny, with big teeth, frightening teeth that make them look far more frightening than they are, but you check yourself to make sure you don't have anything bright or dangly that might attract a hungry barracuda's attention. Now, as you're picturing yourself there on this reef, imagine Jesus swimming next to you. I thought about this past summer. During my sabbatical, I was in Bonaire and I was diving on a reef, and I thought about this as I was there looking at a scene like what I just described. I pictured Jesus being there with me, with a regulator in his mouth, a BCD on, with his tank on his back, and I started to think about what we would talk about after the dive. And this idea of the way that everything is interconnected and on full display came into my mind, came in vivid images. Caring for God's creation might feel obvious at this point. 2025, we all know we should. But like loving our neighbors, we struggle with it. It's a concept that bears revisiting. And so if caring for God's world is a part of following Jesus, then just like loving our neighbors, we can hold it up occasionally as a reality check. And we can ask ourselves, how is what I'm doing caring for God's world? We can also recognize that caring for God's world is an act of loving our neighbors. Because they're in this world too. When we mess up the world, we mess it up for everyone. When someone else messes up the world, they mess it up for everyone. Over the years, this question and holding this up is how we as a family of faith went from a few recycling bins sort of scattered about to almost everything in our church kitchen that we use on Wednesday nights and other meals is compostable now. Compostable. Did I put the emphasis on the right syllable? I'm not sure. But it's also how we got from where we were to where we are, and all of our thermostats, almost all of them, are now smart thermostats. If you want any room in the church air-conditioned right now, Peter, there he is. Peter can pull it up on his phone and control it, but that also allows us to be more efficient with our energy. And our gospel reading, which Martha shared for us, we hear Jesus say, "You're all going to scatter." Now, that's a really hard message. It was hard for the disciples. But I think what Jesus was telling his disciples, and in turn us, is it's going to get hard. It's going to get hard to follow me. It's going to get hard to do what I do. It's going to get hard to model your life after me. So often we know the right thing to do, and then we struggle with doing it. And this is the same in many areas. This is not just about the environment. We know we should be loving, and then sometimes we find it's hard. We know that we should be patient. Maybe I'm just offering a testimony now because that's one that I struggle with. But then I'm tired or I'm hungry or just for whatever reason, find that my patience starts to wear thin. And we could go on and on through the fruits of the Spirit in Galatians 5:22 and 23. We know that we're supposed to be kind. We know that we're supposed to be faithful. We know that we're supposed to be gentle. And this list goes on. And there are times when these attributes are virtually unrecognizable in us. Caring for God's world is no different. The reason we look for it in Mark 14 is our need for greater spiritual understanding. We don't care for the earth. We didn't introduce compostable materials in the kitchen because it's just a right thing to do, because we think it's a good thing to do. We don't take care of God's creation because we're just good-hearted secular humanists. We care for the world because we believe in Psalm 24 when it says the earth is the Lord's. Some passages like Psalm 24 or that part in John 3 where it said, "For God so loved the world," are obvious. Others require a bit more work. Others require some effort on our part to see the interconnectedness of life and how God calls us to care for creation. In Mark 14, Jesus and the disciples, as Martha mentioned in the context of this, they began by singing a hymn, and then they went out to the Mount of Olives. And that's when he told them that they're going to struggle. He didn't say it to discourage them. He didn't say it to question their devotion. He said it as a recognition of the reality of how difficult it is for us to follow his path of perfection. They had just had their Last Supper together, and Jesus then takes them out away and says, "Oh, this is going to be hard. Hear me when I say this. This is not going to be an easy path." And after they responded with their proclamations of devotion, of course not knowing what they were saying, Jesus went to Gethsemane to pray. He demonstrated that constant juxtaposition between spiritual devotion, he went out to pray, and instruction or action. He taught them how to live. And in this case, told them to try to do their best, but to try not to scatter, not to be discouraged. But when you do, extend some grace to yourself. By recognizing it's something that's going to happen, Jesus was essentially saying, look, I know that you're going to fall, but come back. It's okay. It's not okay to fall, but it's okay to be human because you're not perfect like he is. Following Jesus and caring for God's world work together like two sides of the same coin. Too often, Christ followers spiritualize our devotion to God and then set aside the depth of what following God really looks like. The disciples proclaimed their devotion. Peter, the impetuous Peter, as usual, led the pack, saying, look, they're going to do it. I get it, Jesus. They're all weak, not me. And that's where Jesus says, yeah, I get it, Peter. Love your heart, love where you are, but before morning, before the rooster crows, you're going to deny me 3 times. Like those disciples, even Peter, with his incredible devotion and proclamations of devotion, we fall short. Whatever it is, whatever that attribute of following Jesus, we fall short. Walter Brennan, in his book, The Ragamuffin Gospel, wrote, the greatest single cause of atheism in the world today is Christians who acknowledge Jesus with their lips and then walk out the doors and deny him by their lifestyle. That is what an unbelieving world finds unbelievable. In a somewhat ironic twist, one of the great testimonies of faith that came to me as I was thinking about this came from a theologian, Paul Tillich. Now, we don't normally expect a theologian to provide a testimony of faith. We look to theologians for erudite explanations of what it means to follow God. Instead, here, Tillich provided a testimony of devotion. Before he emigrated from Germany in the 1920s, or maybe as late as 30 or 31, he was a young professor. And he used to take his vacations on the Baltic Sea. And in a 1959 Time magazine article, it wrote about how when he first got the great professor, rising star in German academia, when he got to the beach for his vacation, in his coveralls, he would take a shovel and begin shoveling the sand. In the Time magazine article, it says that he made a mound of sand 7 feet tall and 12 feet by 12 feet. And then he took one of those, it said, one of those wicker chairs that is so popular in Europe today, and he set it up on top of this mound and looked out at the ocean. Frederick Buechner, who wrote about this, also cites Tillich sitting up on top of the sand, watching the ocean with tears streaming down his cheeks. Now, Buechner offers some suggestions, some ideas why he may have been moved to tears. Is it the beauty of the ocean? Is it the power of the waves? Is it the mystery of the sea? I don't think so. I think very highly of Buechner, but I don't think that's it here. I think that Tillich found this incredible appreciation for the author of nature as he looked at the crashing waves. This is the one who made all that is. Tillich didn't like to use the word God because he thought it was too small to describe who God is and all that God encompasses. Instead, he would refer to the ground of being. And he wrote in one place, God as the ground of being infinitely transcends that of which he is the ground. That's what we're used to seeing out of Tillich, not a great theologian, or maybe even just a person sitting on a chair looking out at the ocean, so incredibly moved by what he sees that it brings him to tears. His quote is heady stuff, and it can feel removed from daily living. Yet this emotional response to the ocean jars us, or at least it jars me, from unfeeling intellectualism. Instead of exclusively living, breathing, and experiencing our faith in our heads right here, it was a theologian who invited us to move here and see the world and see God, see what's happening. This is an invitation to look around and see God at work. It's a calling to engage with God in the world, using our agency, our freedom, our ability to think and understand and reason, and to take things, everyday, mundane objects like a watch or something we see in nature or animals on migration, and start to trace it around the world and see the interconnectedness of the world around us. When I was in Bonaire, each of the different dive sites is named. And if you look up great diving destinations, which may not be a fun internet search for you, it is for me, you'll see that Bonaire is always right up at the top of the list, and it's always there for shore diving. That's where you can just go up to the edge of the seaside and go right in to someplace where you can go scuba diving. And each of the dive sites has a little yellow rock with the name of the site, and they're all cleverly named, I guess. There's Crystal Sea, there's Salt Pier. Salt Pier is near where they harvest salt, and there's a pier there. So some of them are a bit on the nose. Others are more interesting. The Hilma Hooker is where there's a wreck. Oil Slick Leap is fantastic because it's a concrete edge. You step off into the water and you're on top of the reef. 20 feet below you, there it is. Well, one of the dive sites, and this is one that is always at the top of everyone's list, is called 1,000 Steps. Hence the name of our time, or this message this morning. And 1,000 Steps has a parking area, then a long set of steps that lead down to the water. And so divers can park, get their gear together, and walk down these steps. It's not 1,000. It's 67, in fact, is the number of steps. But as I was going down these steps, I thought about this idea of walking with Jesus, one step at a time. Unlike Jesus' warning to the disciples about not scattering or falling away. When you're going down these steps with all of your gear on, it's a narrow set, and a lot of times it's only one way. If somebody's coming up, you'll wait and let them make their way up before going down. It's even turning around would be a hassle. But as I went down the steps, I thought about Tillich on the beach, seeing the ocean and being moved. Our reading from Philippians reminds us to be of one mind. And once I was in the water, I realized that we don't just walk with Jesus. It isn't just the walk down the steps where we see nature, see the tree, see the birds, and be moved. We can swim with him. Swimming with him, just like the fish on the reef, we live in concert with one another. We work together. And whether we walk or swim, this is where it starts to get interesting. These steps, whether walking or swimming, are our journey every day. And as we take each step, we take it in faith, trusting that God is with us, trusting that our sisters and brothers are with us, trusting that together we can do more than we can individually. We don't have to build a big mound of sand, look out at the ocean to be moved. We can find God's presence and God's movement in everyday activities. We can look at the world and see God, and the more we do it, the more we exercise this muscle, the more we'll begin to appreciate the interconnectedness that we have with one another and we have with our world. We live out our faith one day at a time, knowing that God walks or swims with us each step of the way. Amen.